Low Rivage was the kind of restaurant where time slowed down. Velvet curtains softened the noise, and golden light spilled gently from antique chandeliers. Every plate was art, every napkin folded like origami. You didn't just dine here, you performed elegance. Clara knew how to move through that performance like a whisper. At 67, she'd worked every kind of restaurant California had to offer, but Low Rivage was different. High-end, high pressure, high expectations. And she never faltered. Her gray hair was tied back in a perfect bun, her white apron pressed sharp, and her hands, though weathered, were steady. Until today. Table 14 was her last table before break. She noticed the gentleman immediately, older, clearly, his thin body nearly swallowed by a tailored suit. A wheelchair anchored him in place, his hands trembling slightly over the untouched plate in front of him. Filet mignon. Rare. Already cooling. No one sat with him. No one came. Clara walked over quietly. "Would you like some help, sir?" she asked, gently. The man looked up, startled. His eyes were sharp, proud, but tired. After a moment, he gave a slow nod. With quiet grace, Clara tucked a napkin across his lap, then began to cut the steak into small, manageable bites. She lifted the first piece on a fork and offered it without hesitation, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. He took it. Behind them, unseen by Clara, a sharply dressed man stood near the bar, sleeves rolled, jaw tight, eyes fixed on them. Watching. Not moving. Not yet. The man at the bar didn't blink. His name was Nathaniel Pierce, CEO of one of the most aggressive real estate firms on the West Coast. People feared his emails, memorized his moods, and knew better than to interrupt him when he went silent. Like now. Nathaniel wasn't supposed to be here tonight. He hated this restaurant, thought it was too precious. But his father, Henry Pierce, had insisted on coming. "I want steak like I used to eat," he'd said, voice shaky over the phone. "Real steak. Fancy, like your mother liked." So Nathaniel made a call, cleared a table, and arranged a driver. And now here he was, standing in the shadows, watching an elderly waitress feed his father. Not a nurse. Not him. Her. There was something different about the way she moved, calm, slow, respectful. No pity. No fuss. She wiped a bit of sauce from Henry's chin like it was sacred. Like he mattered. Nathaniel hadn't seen his father smile in almost a year. But now, he was smiling. For her. Something cracked in Nathaniel's chest, unfamiliar and unwelcome. Guilt? Resentment? Gratitude? He didn't know. He pulled out his phone. Took a picture of the two of them. Then he turned and walked to the maitre d'. "Who is she?" he asked, quietly, nodding toward Clara. The maitre d' blinked. "Miss Clara. She's been here for years." Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. Not anymore. The restaurant buzzed with quiet elegance, the kind of luxury that didn't shout, but whispered with silk and silver. Waiters glided, not walked. Glasses clinked like wind chimes. No one noticed the man standing near the bar. Except one person. The bartender. He glanced once, then quickly looked away. The man's presence wasn't loud, but it was heavy. His tailored charcoal suit molded to a frame that had known boxing rings and boardrooms. Hair slicked back with precision. Cufflinks. Platinum. Watch. Rare. Eyes. Watching. Calculating. Nathaniel Pierce. He wasn't here to eat. Nathaniel hadn't planned to come. He hated everything this restaurant represented: excess, nostalgia, performance. But his father had insisted. Fancy. Like your mother liked. I missed the wine. And the table by the window, the old man had said. voice trembling like a teacup on glass. And so, here he was. Standing. Waiting. Hating himself a little more with every minute. Because he couldn't even sit with his father. He couldn't face what time had done to him. What he had done to him. From his place by the bar, Nathaniel watched the waitress approach. Older. Graceful. Back straight like she'd served kings. No frills. No fake smiles. She kneeled slightly, cut his father's steak with the tenderness of someone folding prayer cloths. She didn't flinch. Not at the tremor in Henry's hand. Not at the sauce on his chin. Not at the silence that hung over them like old regret. And then, his father smiled. Nathaniel felt it like a slap. For a moment, he saw it. Not the tycoon. Not the cruel businessman who had once yelled at a maid for wrinkling a napkin. But the man who used to carry Nathaniel on his shoulders through vineyards. Who sang Sinatra off-key while shaving. Gone. No, not gone. Buried. And this waitress, she had unearthed him with a fork and a kind word. A glass of scotch appeared beside him. Compliments of the table, the bartender mumbled. Nathaniel didn't touch it. His eyes stayed locked on them, his father and this stranger. Laughing softly. Sharing something sacred. Something he hadn't given the old man in years. Presence. And for the first time in a decade, Nathaniel Pierce felt ashamed. Not because he had failed. But because someone else hadn't. He took out his phone. Took a picture. Not for Instagram. Not for legacy. But so he could remember this moment the next time someone said his father was impossible. Because maybe, just maybe, he wasn't. He turned to the maitre d'. Who is she? Miss Clara, the man answered. Been here for over a decade. Always early. Never complains. Nathaniel processed it. A single name. No last name on file. Thank you. Then, quietly, almost to himself. Not anymore. By the time he stepped outside, the fog had rolled in. The California night wrapped around him like velvet. His driver was already waiting, door open. But Nathaniel paused. He turned, looked back through the restaurant window. Clara was still there, wiping his father's hands with a napkin. Smiling gently. She didn't know what she'd done. She didn't know what was coming. And that made it easier. Or, harder. In the car, Nathaniel pulled out a worn leather notebook. Open to a half-finished page. Pierce Legacy Project. End-of-life care. Dignity Initiative. Not charity. Impact. He stared at the page. Then wrote one more line. Start with her. His pen hovered. Was this guilt? Redemption? Strategy? He didn't know. All he knew was this. Clara James had entered the story of his family. And no one, not even she, understood what that meant yet. The next day, Clara clocked in like always, early, quiet, unseen. She didn't notice the envelope until halfway through her shift. It was tucked under the silverware tray at her station, crisp, white, her name handwritten in bold strokes. Inside, a single business card. Nathaniel Pierce. CEO, Pierce Group International. And beneath that, a note. You helped someone no one else could. Let me return the favor. N.P. Clara stared at the card for a long moment. Who was this? Excuse me, said the maitre d', appearing beside her. Mr. Pierce is waiting for you. Upstairs. Upstairs? No one ever went upstairs. She followed. And there, in the private dining suite with a view of the coast, sat the man who'd been watching. Younger than she expected. Impeccably dressed. Cold eyes, but not cruel. Miss Clara, he said, standing. You don't know me. But the man you helped yesterday, that was my father. I owe you. She smiled politely. I was just doing my job. No, Nathaniel said. You were doing something rare. He pulled out a folder. I want to offer you something. The next day at Low Rivage began like any other, cool morning air rolling off the coast, staff quietly preparing before the first reservation. Clara moved through the motions like muscle memory, polishing glasses, folding napkins, checking candles. The silence of the dining hall was sacred to her. Then she noticed it. A small, white envelope sitting neatly beside the silverware tray on her station. Unmarked. Clean. Strange. She looked around. No one made eye contact. The maitre d' was busy talking to the sommelier. The others just moved like nothing had changed. But something had. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single ivory business card. Elegant font. Nathaniel Pierce. CEO, Pierce Group International. And on the back, a handwritten message in bold strokes. You helped someone no one else could. Let me return the favor. N.P. Clara felt her hands grow cold. Before she could process what that meant, the maitre d' appeared beside her, as if summoned by thought. Miss Clara, he said carefully, Mr. Pierce is waiting for you upstairs. She blinked. Upstairs. The private floor above Low Rivage was legendary among staff. Rumors said it was reserved for billionaires, politicians, and celebrities who didn't want to be seen. Clara had worked here for 12 years and had never once set foot inside. And now someone like her, someone who packed leftovers in plastic containers and took the bus to work, was being invited upstairs. She untied her apron slowly and followed the maitre d' to the elevator. Her heart thudded as the doors closed. The suite upstairs felt like a different world. Quiet. Dim, expensive. Everything smelled like leather and citrus. Coastal wind slipped through cracked windows, and a panoramic view of the Pacific bled orange and gold as the sun began its descent. Nathaniel stood by the window with a glass of water. No scotch, no wine. Just water. He turned as she entered. Clara, he said, like they were old friends. Thank you for coming. She hesitated, hands folded in front of her. I wasn't sure I had a choice, she said with a faint smile. That made him smirk. You always have a choice. He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat. Between them, a leather folder. Nathaniel leaned forward and opened the folder with a lawyer's precision. Inside, a stack of documents. Neatly clipped. Highlighted. First, he said, I want to offer you a position. Full-time. To work for my father directly. Not in the restaurant. At our family estate in Sonoma. Clara blinked. I'm not a nurse, Mr. Pierce. I know, he said. And that's exactly why I'm asking. He slid the top page toward her. She read. Position, personal companion/home care support. Hours, flexible. Location, Pierce Estate. Compensation, double her current salary. Benefits, full medical, retirement, paid leave. She stared at the number. Her throat tightened. Why me? She asked softly. Surely you can afford trained professionals. Private staff. People with degrees. Nathaniel's jaw tensed. His gaze dropped for a moment. I've hired all of those, he said. They treat him like a patient. You treated him like a man. He paused. That moment stretched between them like a held breath. He smiled, Clara. For the first time in, maybe years. Because of you. Clara lowered her eyes. A part of her wanted to protest, to say she had just done what anyone would do. But the truth was, she hadn't. She'd seen something in Henry, something fragile but still burning, and she'd chosen to protect it. And now, it seemed, the sun had seen something in her. Clara looked back down at the folder. The pages were too clean. The offer too perfect. She had lived too many years to believe in coincidences that tidy. "You're not telling me something," she said quietly. Nathaniel looked at her, eyes unreadable. "There's tension in the family," he admitted. "My cousins think my father should be in a care home. They've been pushing him to sign over medical power of attorney. But, he won't. He's stubborn." "So you're protecting him?" "I'm protecting what's left of him," Nathaniel said. "And right now, that's you." Clara sat back. The room felt colder than before. "Of course," Nathaniel said, suddenly standing, "you can say no. You can go back to bussing tables and folding napkins for people who won't remember your name." He turned to the window again. "But I think you want more than that." She stood too. Slowly. Deliberately. "Maybe I want peace," she said. "Not power. Not politics. Just, peace." Nathaniel didn't turn around. "You'll find it there. At the estate. With him. Or maybe not. But either way, I'm giving you the door." She looked at the folder one more time. One signature. One pen stroke. A different life. The elevator doors opened again behind her. Clara turned to leave. Then stopped. "Do I keep the card?" she asked without facing him. Nathaniel smiled. "Keep it. You might need it." She tucked it into her pocket. And walked out, not up, not down, but somewhere forward. Clara hesitated before opening the folder. Inside were legal documents, employment contracts, insurance coverage, and a number that made her breath hitch. "This is," she whispered. "This can't be right." "It is," Nathaniel replied. "I want you to work for my father. Full-time. At his estate. Personal caregiver. Schedule your way. Salaries in there. Double what you make here." Clara blinked. "But, why me?" He studied her, silent. "My father was a hard man," he finally said. "To me, to my mother, to everyone. But yesterday, for the first time in years, he looked like someone I used to know. That was because of you." Clara lowered her eyes. "I'm no nurse. I'm just. You're exactly what he needs." She stared at the contract. It wasn't just money, it was freedom. A way out. A way forward. But something in his voice, something held back. What wasn't he telling her? Clara had been to fancy homes before, delivering food, working private events. But this? The Pierce estate wasn't just a home. It was a monument. A winding drive led to an iron gate that opened without a word. Beyond it, sculpted gardens, stone fountains, and a mansion perched like a crown atop a hill. The air smelled like lavender and lemon oil. Birds chirped as if trained to. And yet, it was too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it listens. A man in a charcoal suit escorted her inside. "No luggage?" he asked. She tapped her canvas tote. "I pack light." He nodded but didn't smile. The house swallowed her whole. Henry was waiting in the sunroom. He sat in his chair, wrapped in a cream blanket. His eyes, once cold, once powerful, warmed when they met hers. "You came," he said softly. "I said I would. I didn't believe you." Clara approached and knelt beside him, brushing a leaf off his blanket like she'd done it 1,000 times. But this time, something shifted. They weren't strangers anymore. They were two people no one expected anything from anymore. And that made them kin. She poured tea, held the cup to his lips, and said, "Tell me what you used to dream about." Henry chuckled. "Which year?" The first week blurred into rhythm. Every morning, Clara wheeled Henry through the garden. She played him records on vinyl, old jazz, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong. She fed him in silence and listened when he needed to talk. He told stories about the empire he built. About the woman he loved and lost. About the deals that made him rich, and the people he ruined along the way. "I thought power would protect me from being forgotten," he said once. "I was wrong." Clara didn't offer empty comfort. Just presence. And he cherished it more than he admitted. Nathaniel came to the house rarely. When he did, it was always the same. Briefcase in hand. Tension in the jaw. Half smiles that didn't reach his eyes. He always greeted Clara politely. But she could feel something behind it. Something wound tight. One morning, she found him on the balcony, staring into the vineyards. "You never stay long," she said. He didn't turn. "There's nothing here for me." She waited. When he didn't explain, she left him with his ghosts. But her instincts whispered, "He's hiding something. Something bigger than family tension." One evening, a thick envelope appeared on her nightstand. It had no sender name, but she recognized the Pierce Group seal embossed on the corner. Inside, a revised employment contract. She sat on the edge of the bed, heart picking up speed. Pages flipped. Paragraphs scrolled. Then she saw it. "The caregiver shall not discuss any past conversations, family matters, or medical conditions pertaining to Mr. Henry Pierce without written consent from Nathaniel Pierce or legal representation of the estate." Her fingers froze. This wasn't protection. It was containment. She found Nathaniel in his father's study later that night. He was standing by the fireplace, drink in hand, staring at nothing. "I won't sign this," she said, holding out the contract. He looked at it like it was poison. "I thought you might feel that way." "Then why send it?" "Because I'm trying to protect you." "From who?" she demanded. He hesitated. "You think my father just has enemies in the press? Lawyers? Executives?" He stepped closer, voice low. "There are people who see you now, on this estate, in his will, in his life, and they're not happy. Some of them are family. Some are worse." Clara narrowed her eyes. "I don't scare easy, Mr. Pierce. I'm not asking you to be scared. I'm asking you to be smart." That night, Clara sat on the edge of her bed and stared out the window. Below, the vineyards looked peaceful. But she could feel it, the watchers. Not ghosts, but people. Lawyers. Cousins. Quiet visitors. Names not written down. Questions that lingered in hallways after footsteps disappeared. She opened the contract again. Her hand hovered over the page. Then she closed it. And tore it in half. The next morning, Henry looked better. Brighter. "You okay, Clara?" he asked. She smiled, brushing the hair from his forehead. "Just slept funny." But inside, she was not fine. She was in the middle of something deeper than she understood. And yet, she wasn't afraid. Because for the first time in years, she had something worth fighting for. Not a paycheck. A person. And maybe, a truth. 3 days later, Clara stood at the gates of the Pierce estate. It looked more like a museum than a home. Marble statues, fountains, rose gardens. The kind of place you only see in magazines, or dreams. Henry Pierce waited inside, dressed in warm earth tones. The moment he saw her, his eyes softened. "You came," he whispered. "I told you I would," Clara smiled. She rolled him outside to the garden. Fed him fresh berries. Told him stories about the wild customers she'd met in her time waiting tables. He laughed. Really laughed. Like a boy. Inside, from the hallway, Nathaniel watched them again. His phone buzzed. A voice on the other end. "She's the one." Nathaniel answered, "Yeah. She's perfect." But his tone wasn't happy. It was nervous. Because someone else had taken an interest in Clara too. The garden at the Pierce estate wasn't just beautiful, it was engineered. Every rose trimmed with surgical precision. Fountains synced to a soft rhythm, like the estate breathed through water. But Clara quickly learned something else about the garden. It heard everything. She wheeled Henry down the winding gravel path in early morning fog. Birds chirped softly above them. Jasmine perfumed the air. Henry closed his eyes, soaking in the silence. "You know," he said, "they hated this garden. My board members called it a waste." Clara smiled. "But you kept it anyway." "I built a war chest for 50 years, he said. "Then I built this, to remember who I was before the war." Henry was different now. He laughed more, not forced, but soft, surprised laughter, like he'd forgotten how and was just now remembering. He ate more. Slept better. Asked questions. "You always worked in restaurants?" he asked once, sipping from a china cup she held. "Since I was 17. "Why?" Clara paused. "Because people talk when they're eating. And I like listening." Henry chuckled. "That's the most honest answer I've ever heard." Then he added, "Most of my life, I paid people to lie to me." Clara didn't answer. But inside, something tightened, a rope pulling her gently closer to this strange, powerful man. That evening, while returning from the kitchen, Clara spotted a man in a gray suit standing in the east hallway. He wasn't staff. He wasn't family. He held a leather-bound notebook and a phone in one hand. His face, unfamiliar, but sharp. Eyes like cold metal. He glanced at her. Just once. No smile. No words. Then he turned a corner and vanished. She asked a housekeeper later. "No idea," the woman whispered. "They come and go. Lawyers maybe." "Lawyers don't usually carry notebooks," Clara said quietly. The next day, Clara spotted another unfamiliar face. A woman this time. Mid-40s. Hair pinned tight, dark glasses, black blazer, the kind of presence that made the air colder around her. She stood in the rose garden. Alone. No phone. Just, waiting. Clara wheeled Henry past her. Henry didn't speak, didn't even look at the woman. But after they turned the corner, he said, "Don't trust the ones who don't blink." Clara said nothing. But something told her, he knew exactly who the woman was. That night, Clara found Nathaniel in the parlor with two men she'd never seen before. She lingered just outside the doorway, unnoticed. "They're pushing harder," one man said. "If he doesn't sign off on power of attorney, the cousins will go public." Nathaniel's voice was clipped. "He won't do it. Not yet." "And the woman?" A beat of silence. "She's not a problem," Nathaniel said. "She's stabilizing him." "You sure about that?" the second man asked. "Because some people think she's the problem." That was enough. Clara turned and left. Later that night, Clara helped Henry back into bed. He seemed more tired than usual, distant, like something was weighing him down. After he fell asleep, she quietly tidied up the room. Put his books in order. Brushed dust from his windowsill. She found it while organizing the desk drawer, a sealed envelope with her name on it. "To Clara, if anything happens." She didn't open it. She just stood there, the letter trembling in her hands. Because Henry wasn't the only one being watched. The next morning, Clara caught Henry staring at the stained glass in the library. "Funny," he murmured. "I built this house to keep the past out. Now all it does is echo." She sat beside him. "You were a giant once," she said. "People remember giants. But they also fear them. I don't want to be feared anymore." "Then let them see you now." He looked at her. Eyes glassy. "I don't want them to see you. They'll ruin you too." Before dawn, Clara stepped outside alone, drawn by instinct. The air was thick with fog, rolling over the hills like a ghost returning home. From the edge of the vineyard, she saw it. A silhouette, standing just beyond the trees. Still. Watching. Then it disappeared. She didn't run. She didn't even flinch. She whispered to the fog. "If you're here for a fight, you came too late." Weeks passed. Henry's health improved. Clara brought warmth into that cold house, filled it with music, conversation, life. Nathaniel came by less and less. Until one morning, Clara received another envelope. From the Pierce legal department. Inside, an updated contract. She flipped to the last page. A new clause. Caregiver shall not discuss any past conversations, family matters, or medical conditions pertaining to Mr. Pierce without explicit written consent. Her stomach turned. This wasn't about money anymore. Later that day, she found Nathaniel in his office. "I didn't sign up to be silenced," she said. He looked up, eyes tired. "You didn't sign up to be in danger either." Clara froze. "What do you mean, danger?" He stood, ran a hand through his hair. "There are people who want control over his estate. Over his legacy. And you? You've become important." It was there again. An envelope. This time placed carefully on the bedside table next to Clara's reading glasses. No note. No explanation. Just the heavy embossed Pierce seal like a silent stamp of authority. She stared at it for minutes before touching it. She didn't open it. Not yet. She just watched it. Like it might whisper something first. And in a way, it did. She finally opened it in the kitchen, under the warm glow of morning light. A mug of tea sat untouched beside her. Her eyes scanned the pages. The language was careful, polite, even elegant, but the meaning was sharp. Tighter restrictions. Caregivers shall not discuss family conversations or medical status with external parties, including family members not designated as legal agents. Violation may result in immediate termination, and legal recourse. And then, a new addition. All communication with Mr. Henry Pierce may be subject to confidentiality under estate protocol. Clara's lips parted. This wasn't a contract. It was a muzzle. She found Nathaniel in the west atrium, alone, seated near the fire, staring into it like it owed him answers. She dropped the folder on the coffee table in front of him. "What is this?" she asked. He didn't move. "You know what it is." Clara crossed her arms. "I don't work for the estate. I work for your father." Nathaniel finally looked at her. Tired. Cautious. "You work for both now." "No," she snapped. "I care for your father. You're just trying to control what he says." "Because what he says," Nathaniel said evenly, "can be dangerous." "To who?" He didn't answer. That told her enough. That evening, Henry seemed off. His eyes were distant, the lines in his face sharper, like he hadn't slept. When she offered to take him into the garden, he refused, something he never did. "I said too much," he muttered once under his breath. Clara looked up. "What do you mean?" But he shook his head and closed his eyes. Clara felt it in her bones, he was being silenced, too. Not by paper. By pressure. By legacy. By fear. Clara waited until late to make the call, one number she had never used. The card Nathaniel had given her was still in her wallet. She dialed. He answered on the second ring. No greeting. Just. I figured it was coming. She didn't hesitate. You don't want someone to care for your father. You want someone to control him. No, Nathaniel said softly. I want him to stay alive. And if that means shutting some doors, so be it. You think secrets keep people alive? They've kept this family in power for 80 years. And what about dignity? A pause. He traded that for profit decades ago. Another pause. Don't do the same. She walked the gardens at midnight, her flashlight off. The moon lit her path. She needed to breathe. Among the white roses, she found peace, but not for long. As she turned toward the eastern path, she saw a flicker of light in Henry's study window. He was supposed to be asleep. She approached. Through the glass, she saw him, not in bed, but writing. Hands shaking. Pages flipping. Something intense in his face. He didn't see her. She didn't interrupt. But she knew, he was leaving something behind. The next morning, Henry was quiet again. He winced when he moved, and didn't eat much. Clara brought him tea, sat beside him in silence. Then, without warning, he whispered. They're watching you now too. She didn't answer. Didn't blink. I'm not afraid, she said. I am, he said. Not of them. Of what I've become in their eyes. You're still human, Henry. He smiled weakly. Maybe. But in this house, that's not always a good thing. That night, Clara sat in her room with the contract open one last time. She didn't tear it. She didn't sign it. She took a black pen. And wrote her own clause across the bottom. I will protect Mr. Henry Pierce. Not his name. Not his fortune. Him. Then she folded it. Left it on Nathaniel's desk. And walked away. That night, Clara found Henry asleep in his chair. She sat beside him, brushing a blanket over his knees. He stirred. You're the only one who treats me like I'm still alive, he murmured. Clara swallowed hard. You are alive. That's the point. He reached for her hand. I want you to stay. She smiled, but her heart was heavy. What if she was just a pawn in some family war? What if the kindness was conditional? That night, she packed a small bag. Just in case. By morning, she was ready to walk away. Until she found an old box on the kitchen counter. Inside, a stack of journals. Henry's. One was open. A page marked. If I die tomorrow, let it be known. The best thing that ever happened to me, was her. Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't leave. Not now. Henry died 2 months later. Peacefully. In his sleep. Clara was the last voice he heard, telling him about the sky, the breeze, the jasmine in bloom. At the reading of the will, the lawyers spoke slowly. Nathaniel sat still. So did the rest of the extended family. To my son Nathaniel, my company, my assets. To my cousins, the vineyard, the watches, the cars. Pause. And to Clara James, my home, and $2 million to establish a foundation for elderly care. Under her name. The room went silent. Nathaniel looked over at her. He didn't look angry. Or bitter. He looked grateful. You changed him, he said. No, Clara whispered, voice shaking. He changed himself.